Hello, friends, and welcome back to this week's episode of YMCast. As always, it is excellent and brilliant to be with you. I hope you've had a very good week. As always, we like to start in prayer, so let's pray. Heavenly Lord, I pray that everyone who has been watching these podcasts over the past few weeks has been really enjoying them. I want them all to know your blessings and assurances this week and always, and just know that while we are getting back to church as we once knew it, we are always trying to worship you. May you give your love and blessings unto everyone, and may we all know your peace and harmony. Amen. So this week I got very lucky actually, and I was able to interview Tim Baker. Tim Baker works for All We Can, Methodist Relief and Development Organisation, but he will explain a little bit more about that. But we're going to just start off with a video from All We Can now, and then we'll get straight into the interview. So, welcome one and all, and I am very excited today to be joined by Tim Baker. Tim works for All We Can. So, Tim, what is All We Can?
Good afternoon, Michael. Thanks for having me on. All We Can is the Methodist Church's international development charity. We used to be called the Methodist. Continue to kind of be a relief and development agency of the Methodist Church, so working on behalf of the church all around the world in some of the world's poorest places, trying to tackle poverty, and that obviously looks like lots of different things in different places, but that's our kind of broad brief: is can we be the Methodist Church's response to global and extreme poverty?
Very good. And what role do you do within All We Can?
Yes, so I'm the Churches and Volunteers Manager, which means I kind of lead the churches team. So there's a group of three of us who are involved in kind of just helping All We Can's work to relate to the church here in the UK. So it's really just about kind of taking that work, which can be quite complex, and the whole world of international development, is full of jargon, and as most sectors are, kind of full of its own sort of way of working and way of thinking and talking, and really trying to relate that back to the church here in the UK and make that relatable for the UK church. I think for all that international development is a kind of professional and institutionalized sector, it's also a really powerful expression of what it means to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. I think for me, and certainly that's part of the reason I do this work, is that Jesus so often just kind of calls us into that, what can you do for your global neighbours? What can you do for those in the most difficult position? think of Jesus in Matthew saying, whatever you did for the least of these. It's almost the people we would think of last on the list of people you might pray for. You might pray for your family and your neighbours and those nearby, and then those in your own country. And so many of us would get to the bottom of that list before we got to some of the people that All We Can are working with. So it's really important to us to find ways to relate that work back to the church here in the UK.
And I know that obviously you kind of have a kind of great deal of links with the Methodist Church, and I understand at the moment the president of Methodist Church, Richard Teal, we've had him on the podcast before. He's been off riding his bike recently for All We Can. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Richard is brilliant and a really keen and passionate supporter of All We Can, and it's been really great working with him since he came into office earlier in the year. So yeah, Richard's been riding around East Yorkshire raising money for our work, partly because he really wanted to get into bicycles anyway, and in his year of presidency he wanted to talk about bicycles, but also partly because he had the opportunity to meet with our partners in Uganda, which is the piece of work we've been talking about all year, and we'll continue to do so on into the rest of this church year. So if you haven't seen any of All We Can stuff about change begins with a bicycle yet, then hopefully by the end of this podcast you'll have seen a little bit of it, and an opportunity to go away and find out a little bit more, because Richard met with them in the only sense in which we can do meetings these days. He met with them via Zoom and heard some of the amazing work that our local partner there in Uganda is doing. They're doing some incredible stuff. Just very simple idea of providing a bicycle to people in some of the poor rural communities around where they're based, in an area called Jinja in sort of southern western Uganda. So what the bicycles are doing are just enabling people to get to the facilities that they need in order to survive and then to thrive. One example is the young lady who I met when I was there before coronavirus. I was there in November of last year when we were allowed to travel. And I had the privilege of meeting Nawalat, who is a kind of bright and ambitious young girl of about 15, 16, but she's also got lots of other demands on her time. And so her commitment to her schooling and her education was being really stretched, not least because her school is 10 kilometers away. So like 7.5 miles. She was having to walk that distance morning and evening. And just the sheer amount of time that was taking out of her day was meaning that I think she was probably at the point where she might have had to drop out of school. Then our local partners came along, provided a bicycle. She's now more than half that journey time and is now able to continue with school. And so, sounds like a simple thing, doesn't it? Kind of giving a bike to somebody, but actually investing in somebody's education is much more than a simple thing. It becomes about a whole future. So that's why we've sort of straplined the campaign. So change begins with a bike, helping to break the cycle of poverty. And I think that's a pun on bicycle, of course, but also a very serious point about actually, for many of these communities, what they do live with is a kind of cycle of poverty where you're born into a really difficult situation. You end up dropping out of school at quite an early age in order to help manage the situation. So for Nawalat, it would be, will you come and work on the family farm with us to help produce enough crops to stay alive? And then you grow up without having had an education, without having to break out of that cycle. So really important that we give people the opportunity to just do something different. And Nawalat wants to be a chemist. Wants to be a nurse, sorry. She loves chemistry, loves the sciences, wants to be a nurse. And so she wants to invest in her own future. So kind of you see the potential for things to be different. And that's what we get excited about at All We Can, is the people's potential being fulfilled, the opportunity for things to look different. So yes, God bless Richard and his cycling. And if anybody else fancies taking up a cycling challenge, just get in touch. And we haven't had anyone do Land's End to John O'Groats yet, so I'm still hopeful before the year's out.
Oh yes, to keep you busy in times of COVID. That's I know as well. All We Can is kind of moving very much with the modern times and does things very regularly on a daily basis on Facebook. So what's that all about?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So that was a kind of immediate response to the pandemic. All We Can's had a social media presence for years now, but back in March, when suddenly we realised that everything was going to be closed and that churches were starting to close, and we weren't quite sure how long for or what that would look like, and people were already starting to self-isolate, we realised we were going to have to do something to help just reach people, really. And it was kind of born out of a very I think for years about about how we're trying to serve the church here in the UK. We're not just a sort of international development agency that's trying to take money out of the UK and send it overseas. We're part of a much more holistic way of thinking about what it is to be church, which is about how do we, it's part of the gift of the church here in the UK is that we can help people around the world and we can respond to the gospel of Jesus in that way. So we kind of said, what does the church need right now? And we're inspired by the verse in Colossians 1:17, where Paul writes, "In Christ all things hold together." And in that moment, that sort of pandemic moment, it felt like that was exactly what we needed to hear, this kind of invitation to holding together, to holding on to all those community ties that were suddenly being challenged by, well, if the only time I see my friends is at church and at coffee morning, and both of those things have been cancelled, how do we hold together? So at 1:17 p.m. every day, we've been putting some stuff out on social media. Sometimes it's a live video with a chance for people to chat and have a conversation in the comments. Sometimes it's a post, sometimes it's a link to something else that's going on. And just, I've been so encouraged by how many people have found that helpful. I think when we started doing it, I thought we might do it for 6 weeks. It's now, 7 months later, and we're still doing something every day. And that's been a real blessing, a real kind of, we've all had those moments, haven't we, during this pandemic, these times when, yes, amongst all that's been rubbish, there's been these little glimmers of, oh, that's actually a really good story, a really good coronavirus story. For me, 1:17 has been my good coronavirus story, because I've got to just hang out with loads of really cool people online and hear their stories and hold together and pray for each other and pray with each other. And that's been a real blessing.
Brilliant. And you mentioned that project earlier. And obviously back in normal times as they were, you would have kind of done quite a lot of traveling, I suspect, for All We Can. So what has been your favorite project that you've ever come across in your work?
Oh, that's a good question, Michael. It's like asking someone to choose their favorite child. I've got just, I love working with so many of our partners, and I'm probably going to do the political thing here and avoid the question. But really, really good question. I think what I love more than anything else, rather than kind of picking a favorite project, is what I really love about all of the work that we do is the passion of the local people who drive it. I think that's wherever I've been to India and Zimbabwe and Uganda, and met several of our other partners when they've been over here. It's always kind of their energy and their passion that's infectious. I often joke that it's difficult to talk about All We Can in a short space of time, and really easy to talk about All We Can in a really long space of time, because in all of those places our work looks so different. And I think that's why it's really hard to compare it. And to answer your question honestly, is that in Uganda it's about providing bicycles to rural communities. In Zimbabwe it's about alternative methods of farming and helping people breed chickens. Some of you may remember the chicken that travelled around with me if you saw me back in 2018-19. In Malawi it's about solar energy, and all of those projects are so different, but what's the same across all of them is that they're being driven by a local person who's had a really good idea and has a load of passion and energy to try and make it happen. So that's kind of what I love about the All We Can model, is that we're not coming up with the ideas. It's not somebody sitting in Methodist Church House in London, or somebody sitting on a Zoom call here in West Yorkshire trying to come up with a solution to how we solve poverty in rural Uganda. It's actually somebody in rural Uganda who's had the good idea, and all that we're doing is helping them on with it, helping them make it happen, is having the meetings about how you structure a board in order to have a proper governance structure over the project that you're trying to run, and providing some essential finance to help getting it up and running. And I suppose that's the other thing I'd say that I love about this job, is getting to work with so many lovely and generous Methodists here in the UK, who just make it possible and reach deeper and deeper into their pockets, no matter whether it's a time of global pandemic and a financial crisis. People still find ways to say, actually, this still matters, and it still matters to me. So thank you if you've ever dug in your pockets and helped support all we can.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned very kind of generous Methodists in there, and I hope there are some generous Methodists among us watching today. How can we get involved with all we can? So.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I'm sure there are lots of generous Methodists tuning in, so hello to you all, and thank you for your support. There's lots of ways that you can help support all we can and help kind of take us on to the next level. We're always trying to do a bit more for these communities that we're working with. One thing I would encourage you just to think about is whether you're able to make a small, regular, monthly contribution. This is a really important thing. At the kind of heart of what All We Can does is that, as I just tried to talk about a bit there, what we really try and do is give the power to our local partners to choose how they want to do the work they want to do. And we're able to do that because we have such a committed group of people who just give to us regularly every month and say, it's over to you to decide what to do with it. So I'm all for people fundraising and saying, I want to support that specific project or that specific project. But actually, what makes All We Can the unique, awesome little organisation it is those group of people who just say, here's a little bit every month. You decide how it's going to work. You let your partners decide how it's going to work. And that's what enables us to really empower them. So yes, do consider that. And if you're interested in that, just need to go to allwecan.org.uk/bike. And there's loads of information there just about how you can sign up online or find out how to get in touch with the team and do it over the phone or anything else. So do encourage you to do that. But there's lots of other ways as well. If that's not for you, then do take a look at the website, allwecan.org.uk. So many ideas about, we need people to help volunteer, to help get the message out there. I talked about my role being helping to relate all we can to the local church, but there's just the three of us here in the UK, and the church in the UK is quite a big thing, 4,500 Methodist churches, and that's just the Methodists. So plenty of work to be done to get that message out there. We've got a lovely team of volunteer speakers. So if you're looking for some experience in speaking, either in churches, once churches are open and exploring that possibility, or if you're interested in doing like online speaking, helping us to make videos, just get in touch with us and the team. And there's plenty to be done if we're going to tackle poverty in my lifetime.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Tim. It's always great to hear from you. Always great to hear what All We Can has been up to.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Our biggest challenge is we take care of my elderly mother and 7 grandchildren. It costs a lot and our income is very small.
I really want to go to school, but it's a long way and I have a lot of chores to do first.
Life has been very hard because I'm disabled. I'm struggling to support my family.
It's not what I want to do, but I have to make bricks to help my family.
For families like these, change begins with a bike. Change begins with your regular support. For Moses' son Ariel, having a bike means freedom.
Now I can get to school and not make bricks all the time.
For Moses, it means now he can earn some money.
My bicycle repair business will grow and I'll be able to feed my family.
For Florence and David's extended family, it means an additional income.
The bike makes it easier for our grandson Andrew to sell his fish at market and get to school.
And for Nawalat, it means the future she's always dreamed of.
I use my bike to get to school so I can be a nurse one day.
Change begins with a bike. Begin this journey as a regular giver. See the cycle of poverty broken for £6 a month.
So thank you very much, Tim, for being interviewed, and it's excellent to be able to hear what All We Can is doing. As Tim says, please do check out what All We Can are doing on their website, on kind of Facebook and Twitter, looking out for being able to use your bikes in very interesting and slightly different ways. But I hope you've enjoyed this episode of YMCast. As always, it is great to be with you. Please do get in contact with me or using the hashtag YMCast. It is great to be able to hear from you. So I hope you've had a good week, and cheerio.